Imagine this. It's late afternoon in July. The parking lot is silent. The air outside is heavy, almost syrup-thick with heat. You step into your car and close the door. The sound seals you inside. Within minutes, the temperature begins to climb. Not gradually, not politely. It spikes. What most people don't understand is that heat stroke doesn't begin when you feel dizzy. It begins long before that. It begins when physics turns against you. Most people believe sweat protects them. They think as long as they are sweating, they are safe. That is the myth. Sweat does not cool you by existing. It cools you only if it can evaporate. And evaporation depends on air movement, humidity, and temperature gradients. If the air around you is already saturated with moisture, or if it is hotter than your skin, sweat becomes useless. It drips. It soaks your clothes. It gives you the illusion of cooling while your core temperature quietly rises. Your body is not designed to survive extreme heat indefinitely. It is a 100-watt biological engine that must constantly dump excess heat into the environment. Normally, it does this through radiation, convection, and evaporation. But when the environment becomes hotter than you, radiation reverses. Instead of losing heat, you absorb it. Convection reverses. Instead of warm air leaving your skin, hotter air transfers energy into you. At that moment, the only remaining defense is evaporation. And if evaporation fails, the trap is set. Inside a parked car, on a 95-degree day, the internal temperature can exceed 130 degrees Fahrenheit within 20 minutes. This is not exaggeration. This is greenhouse physics. Sunlight enters through the glass as shortwave radiation. It strikes the dashboard and seats, which absorb it and re-emit it as long-wave infrared radiation. That infrared energy cannot escape efficiently through the glass. It accumulates. The car becomes a heat battery, and you are inside it. But the car is only one scenario. The real danger is not the vehicle. It is the mechanism. Heat stroke is not about discomfort. It is about thermodynamic imbalance. When your core temperature rises above 104 degrees Fahrenheit, proteins in your body begin to denature. Enzymes lose structure. Cells malfunction. Your brain, which is extremely sensitive to heat, starts to misfire. Judgment deteriorates. Coordination fails. You stop recognizing that you are in danger. Here is what makes heat stroke especially lethal. It disables your ability to respond before you realize you need to respond. Early symptoms feel like fatigue, mild headache, irritability. You may even feel chilled despite the heat, because blood is being redirected to the skin in a desperate attempt to shed energy. But as your circulatory system works harder, your heart rate increases. Blood pressure drops. Organs begin to receive less oxygen. At the same time, dehydration accelerates the spiral. Every drop of sweat carries not just water, but electrolytes, sodium, potassium, chloride. These ions regulate nerve impulses and muscle contraction. As they deplete, your heart rhythm becomes unstable, muscles cramp. Your cooling system becomes less efficient. And here is the critical detail most people ignore. Thirst is not an early warning system. By the time you feel intensely thirsty, you are already significantly dehydrated. Heat stroke progresses in phases. First comes heat stress. You feel hot but functional. Then heat exhaustion. Heavy sweating, weakness, nausea. But if the environment continues to overwhelm your ability to cool yourself, you cross an invisible threshold. Sweating may stop entirely. Your skin becomes hot and dry. This is not improvement, it is failure. Your cooling system has collapsed. Now the internal temperature rises rapidly. The brain begins to swell. Confusion sets in. Speech becomes slurred. You may stumble or behave irrationally. In severe cases, seizures occur. Without rapid intervention, organs begin to fail. The liver, kidneys, and heart cannot tolerate sustained high temperatures. The damage can become irreversible within minutes. And here is the part nobody talks about. Heat stroke does not require a desert. It does not require extreme climates. It can happen during a summer power outage, during a long outdoor event, during a traffic jam, during a workout in high humidity. It happens when environmental heat load exceeds your body's ability to dissipate energy. It is a physics problem before it becomes a medical emergency. When people say, "I can handle heat," they are talking about comfort tolerance. Heat stroke does not care about your comfort tolerance. It cares about gradients. It cares about airflow. It cares about humidity. It cares about the rate at which entropy moves through your biological system. If the environment is pushing heat into you faster than you can push it out, the clock starts ticking. The 20-minute trap is not a marketing phrase. It is a real-world window in which conditions can shift from manageable to catastrophic. And the most dangerous part is that during those first minutes, you still feel in control. You still believe you can endure it. That belief is often the final mistake. In Part 2, we break down exactly how to interrupt this mechanism, how to prevent the thermal spiral before it begins, and why common instincts, like staying still in hot air or drinking ice-cold water too quickly, can actually make things worse. To survive extreme heat, you do not fight temperature. You manage heat transfer. That distinction is everything. Most people try to endure heat. They sit still. They conserve energy. They tell themselves it will pass. But still air is an enemy. When air is stagnant, the thin boundary layer of hot air around your skin remains trapped. Evaporation slows. Convection collapses. Your body keeps generating metabolic heat, but the surrounding environment refuses to carry it away. You are not cooling. You are marinating in your own thermal output. Air movement is not comfort. It is survival. Even a small fan dramatically increases convective heat transfer and evaporation. Moving air strips away the saturated boundary layer clinging to your skin and replaces it with drier air that can accept moisture. This is why a breeze feels transformative in summer. It is not psychological relief, it is physics restoring balance. Hydration is equally misunderstood. People assume that drinking water is enough. It is not just about volume, it is about rate and composition. If you consume large amounts of pure water rapidly, you dilute your remaining electrolytes. In severe cases, this can cause hyponatremia, which disrupts nerve signaling and worsens confusion. Effective hydration in extreme heat requires steady intake and electrolyte balance. Your circulatory system depends on sodium concentration to maintain blood pressure. Without it, your body cannot effectively move heat from the core to the skin. Shade alone is also not a solution. Shade reduces radiant heat load, but it does not automatically lower air temperature. If the ambient air remains above body temperature, convection continues to work against you. In high humidity, evaporation becomes inefficient, regardless of shade. Survival in heat requires layered thinking. reduce radiant exposure, increase airflow, maintain hydration, and lower metabolic output simultaneously. One of the most dangerous misconceptions involves clothing. Instinct tells you to remove as much as possible, but in extreme sun exposure, strategic coverage can reduce heat gain. Loose, light-colored, breathable fabric creates a microclimate around the skin. It blocks direct radiation while allowing airflow. Bare skin under direct sun can absorb more radiant energy than protected skin. Again, survival is about managing inputs and outputs, not reacting emotionally to discomfort. Now consider the parked car scenario again. Cracking the windows slightly does almost nothing. The greenhouse effect continues because solar radiation remains the dominant input. The interior surfaces absorb energy faster than minimal airflow can remove it. The only effective solution is eliminating the heat source or exiting the enclosure. There is no endurance strategy inside a sealed vehicle under direct sun. The physics will always win. Heat stroke prevention is about anticipation. You must intervene before the threshold is crossed. Once core temperature exceeds critical levels, self-rescue becomes unlikely. Confusion impairs decision-making. Motor control deteriorates. You may not recognize the urgency. This is why external monitoring, timers, environmental awareness, checking on others is vital. Children, the elderly, and pets are especially vulnerable because their thermoregulation systems are less efficient. Their bodies absorb heat faster and dissipate it slower. There is also a psychological component to the trap. Humans are notoriously poor at estimating risk when conditions change gradually. A slowly rising temperature does not trigger panic. It triggers adaptation. You adjust. You normalize. You rationalize. It's hot, but I'm fine. That quiet confidence can be lethal. Heat stroke does not arrive with drama. It arrives with subtle deterioration. Recovery from severe heat stroke is not guaranteed. Even if medical treatment lowers core temperature quickly, organ damage may persist. Kidney injury from prolonged dehydration can become chronic. Neurological effects can linger. Survival is not binary. It is a spectrum of outcomes. Avoiding the threshold entirely is infinitely safer than trying to reverse it. So what is the practical system? First, monitor environment, not just how you feel. Heat index matters more than air temperature alone because humidity determines evaporative efficiency. Second, maintain continuous hydration with electrolyte support, not sporadic chugging. Third, create airflow whenever possible. Fans, cross-ventilation, shade with wind exposure. Fourth, reduce metabolic heat production, slow movements, avoid heavy exertion during peak sun hours. Fifth, never rely on tolerance or past experience as proof of safety. Each environment is a new equation. The body is remarkably resilient within limits. It can adapt to warm climates over time through acclimatization, increasing plasma volume and improving sweat efficiency. But adaptation has boundaries. When environmental heat exceeds physiological capacity, adaptation fails. That failure can occur rapidly. The 20-minute heat stroke trap is not about a fixed number. It is about how quickly the balance can shift when radiation, convection, and evaporation all collapse at once. Inside a vehicle. During a power outage without airflow. In a humid stadium. On a job site under direct sun. The common factor is simple. Heat enters faster than it leaves. Survival systems is about recognizing these mechanisms before they escalate. When you understand that heat stroke is a thermodynamic imbalance rather than a test of toughness, your decisions change. You prioritize airflow over pride, electrolytes over impulse, shade plus wind over shade alone. You respect the gradient. Heat is patient. It does not rush. It accumulates. Your job is to interrupt that accumulation early. Understand the system. Survive the event.